I don't care if you win. If you win, you probably left 50% of the case value on the table. That's not something you get from law school.
Some days, like yesterday, I am fired up. Let's go, you know? Welcome, everybody, to the Law by Number podcast. I'm your host, Byron Warnkin. I have an awesome guest with me here today, Tiffani Collins. She's the founder of the Collins Legal Group. She's an outstanding litigator with a number of seven-figure verdicts to her credit. Tiffani and I have been friends for a number of years and talk all things marketing, law firm management, kids, family, balance, all that stuff. And Tiffani's got great perspective, and I think she's a perfect guest for Law by Number. So Tiffani, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. My favorite podcaster. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tiff, I'm going to jump right in. Okay.
Let's go for it.
The three numbers, and this is a question I ask everybody. What are the three numbers that you look at for your firm to say, okay, I'm good. I'm going to be good. My firm's healthy. My firm's growing. My firm's whatever it is you want it to be. What are your three numbers?
So the three big numbers for me are most important revenue. What are we bringing in? Number two, conversion rate. We know what we're bringing in, but what we brought in this month is a product of work that was done 6 months before. Are we going to be able to keep pace? Are we keeping pace? Are we exceeding our past numbers? And then number three is productivity. I am running my attorneys, my paralegals, my legal assistants. I'm running their numbers every single week. Are they billing? Are they making their goals? Are they doing constructive work on cases that's pushing cases through? Is everybody busy? Do we have too much staff? Those are probably the three most important numbers that I look at every single month to make sure that one, we are staying afloat. Two, that we are in a position where we're sustaining all of the expenses that we're incurring. And three, that we are in fact being profitable.
Sure. Conversion rate is one I don't hear a ton, and it's a good one, and it makes sense. And it's something I should do a better job tracking myself, frankly. Talk to me a little bit about conversion rate. Are we talking number of leads and number of cases? I mean, is that generally what you mean?
Right. We're looking at the number of leads that are coming in and how many of those leads are being converted over to actual clients, right? At the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're bringing new cases in, because the money that you're seeing that month is not money from cases that came in that month. That's money from cases that came in 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, right? And so in order to properly plan for what your future is going to look like, you have to make sure that your numbers show that you're bringing in the correct amount of cases on a consistent basis. It doesn't matter how great your January is. If you brought in 0 clients in January, I can tell you that your June, your July, your August, they might not be so great.
Right. Exactly. So, and I do hear pipeline, right? And this is part of the pipeline, or sort of one of the tops, near the top of the funnel of pipeline. How good of a job do you do or not? I do not do a great job myself tracking source and then pushing out more marketing to, for that source that's doing well for you.
So my marketing director is really anal about source. If a lead comes through and the intake specialist has not recorded where that call came from, how they found us, whether it was our Google ads, our billboards, a referral from another colleague, a referral from a previous client, if that information is not in there, the intake specialist can expect that she's going to get a very aggressive email or phone call from our marketing director because those numbers matter, right? You want to make sure that you're putting your dollars in the area that's making the most money for you, or at least bringing in a substantial number of clients for you. Where is your exposure? One of the things that we do is billboards. And the interesting thing is that very few people call you because they see your billboard, right? That's not the way that people think of you when it comes time for like, I need a lawyer, I've been injured in a car accident, or I've been a victim of medical malpractice, or, I have these criminal charges. What happens is when we talk to people like more in depth, when clients sign up to us, what we're finding is that, oh, I remember I drove past your billboard. It's on my way to work. I drove past it like 3 times. But, when I was looking for a lawyer, somebody else referred you to me, but I felt like I knew who you were because I saw your billboards, right?
Right.
So it's important to understand the history of how the client comes to you and why the client chooses you, so that you can make sure that if it's a good referral source, that you're showing them that you appreciate their referral. If it is, your ads that you're running on social media, then you're making sure you're pumping more money into it because it's getting impressions, you're getting hits from it. If it's billboards, you want to make sure that you're putting them in the right places, that you're putting them in places that have a good amount of traffic, that have, a heavy amount of traffic where people are going to see them, and you can track that. So you have to make sure you're following up with where and how clients got to you, but you have to understand that it's usually a story that comes with it. Unless it's a direct referral, people have usually seen you. And I mean, look, I see you, Byron, I see you every day. I mean, like, I feel like, every time I turn on my computer, you're there. But, people, there's a trust that's created when they feel like they're getting an opportunity to see you on a regular basis, whether it's through an advertisement or a posting or anything like that. So then when your name comes up, they're like, oh, I know who Tiffani Collins is. I know who Byron Warnken is. And there's a sense of comfortableness that encourages them to not only pick up the phone, but to sign the retainer.
Absolutely. What I'm hearing from you, and I should think of it this way more myself, because we ask the question, right? And we're probably not good enough about pressing people when there's not a sufficient answer. But you're not just asking the question, you're talking to them about the sort of buyer's journey. You're saying, what was this process that you came to know me, to trust me, to, and you're making a great point about brand, and how really this is what my, social push is about. It's not about direct conversions per se. It's about just increasing that brand. And you've done a good job with that. So tell me about how many billboards do you have?
We have 7 or 8, and they rotate throughout the city every 4 weeks. We have one that stays in place permanently, and then the other ones rotate around the city.
So one rotating, one static. Your billboards they produce for you, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because people recognize you in the weirdest places. I remember I was in Chick-fil-A, and I was having this reception at my house for some really good friends who had just been appointed to the bench. And you can't have a party without Chick-fil-A nuggets. It's impossible. You got to have the nugget platter, right? So I'm in Chick-fil-A. I'm trying to pick up the nugget platter. They're telling me there's no order. I know there's an order because I placed the order. I just don't have the receipt with me, like in my hand. So I am in Chick-fil-A, probably 3 seconds from raising complete hell. And this guy is staring at me. And so I'm like, sir, can I help you? And he's like, is your name Tiffani? Are you on the billboard? Are you the Call Tiffani girl? And so I'm like, it's like cringe moment, right? I got people that come up to me in the grocery store that say, oh my gosh, I saw your billboard. So it's so funny because it creates that sense of, I know this person, and it plants that seed in their mind, even when they don't need an attorney. Because I'll tell you this, I used to think that television advertisement was liquid gold, and maybe it is, maybe it still is liquid gold. But what I have found is so many people are skipping through commercials and advertisements and tuning them out. They're really not paying attention to them. That what drives name recognition for a lot of people is what they're seeing. And that's what you get from the billboards. You get this, and even some of the social media stuff, right? You're getting this name recognition without having to sit through a 15-second, 20-second super emotional, commercial about, some tragic injury that happened to a person. And I just think that that resonates with people on a more positive level, when they're seeing these billboards or when they're seeing these social media ads.
Right. Yeah. One of the challenges I've found is it's not just informational, even though some of my stuff is informational. You have to sort of entertain on social media, and that can be a challenge for me. And it's
Not
funny.
for you.
Well, some days so my guy comes once a week. So I got to have like a 4-hour block a week. And some days he gets here and I'm just like, dude, fuck this. I can't do it. I'm not feeling it today. And some days like yesterday, I am fired up. Let's go. I'm informative. I'm hilarious. What's up? Let's go. So, but it is, it really is like, and some days he'll joke and he refers to me as the talent, and I'm like, and I feel that a little bit, like I got to perform, tell us a little bit about your firm, about, how many people do you have? What does everybody do?
Okay. So we consider ourselves a boutique litigation firm. Boutique because we're small in size. I think total employees, we probably have about somewhere between 10 and 11 all together. Some of our employees are remote. Some people are full-time in the office. So we concentrate our practice in predominantly areas of litigation. So civil litigation, we do some criminal defense, we do a lot of personal injury, which includes, workers' compensation, truck accidents, medical malpractice. We do a good amount of police brutality and civil rights violation work as well. We have, including myself, there are 3 attorneys. We have 4 paralegals at this point. We have a director of marketing, an intake specialist, and an office manager who's kind of like, she's more like a director of operations. She handles all of the administrative stuff that is necessary to move the case along. Although I am technically the managing member, I am still very much practicing. I am still in court 2 or 3 days a week. I'm still arguing with adjusters on the telephone. I'm still going out in front of juries, asking them to give my client money. So it's important to make sure you have people in place that can kind of cover the spread, right? For lack of a better term, to make sure that everything's covered and the train is moving.
Yep. And you enjoy that. We hear a lot, we both go to the CRISP stuff and spend a lot of time studying the industry, and you hear a lot, oh no, you got to give up the legal work. That's not something you're going to do. You're a lawyer through and through. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm not ready yet. Maybe in 10 years, I might feel differently. Older attorneys always say, oh, you're so young. You're still fresh. You just give it a few more years and you're going to be burnt out. But I think burnout, though, comes from not having the right people in the right places. One of the things, when we go to these different seminars and these different marketing workshops, one of the things that they stress is the importance of making sure you have the right people in the right places. I look at the data regularly. I just don't compile the data anymore, right? I have someone else who's going through and they're pulling billables. They're looking at conversion rates. They're looking at what the revenue is, and they're giving me this information that, I can spot verify as necessary when I choose to, but I'm still informed in the operations of it. I just don't have to do everything myself.
Sure. So you have 2 other attorneys?
Yes.
Is that right? So do you spend a lot of time mentoring those attorneys?
Mentorship is so incredibly important when it comes to young attorneys. So I have a newly licensed attorney, meaning fresh out of law school. And then I have an attorney who had been practicing some time before she came to my office. They are both very ambitious, very hungry, very, excited about the practice. And I think that's so important. Mentorship is important because it really does shape what the experience is like for the attorney. You meet people who after 5 years or 10 years are like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I'm not enjoying it. And I think that comes from a lack of mentorship, right? Someone has just been shoveling stuff on them and not really teaching them about the practice, because the practice is more than just going to court, right? The practice is more than just understanding what the client's needs are. You can be a great writer. You can be a fantastic advocate, but there's more to the practice than that. And if you're not learning to embrace what it is that we're doing as these warriors of justice, it's so easy to lose interest in what you're doing quickly.
That's a really good point. And I think something that I need to think a little bit more about, because I have my more senior people, I couldn't mentor them if I wanted to. That's not totally true. I mean, but you're right about the younger attorneys and about the way that their mind starts to think if too much is laid on them, I think.
Yeah.
How have the numbers that you've tracked, how has that changed over time? How, like, where your focus is?
Yeah, so it's important. When the pandemic happened, it opened up a practice area that we were doing on a more limited basis, right? So what we begin to see is that there are a lot more people interested in representation in domestic cases, whether it was divorce or custody support cases or protective order cases. There were a lot more people reaching out to us anyway for representation in those cases. So we hired an attorney to basically address that need, right? We wanted to make sure that we put somebody in place that would be there to receive those calls, that would be there to try those cases, and that would be there to, be with the clients during that time. So we, use it to determine what our personnel needs are. That's most important. Are the cases moving fast enough, right? Do the attorneys have too many cases? Is there one practice area that's booming that an attorney is better suited for than another one? In addition to that, we've made a lot of changes in terms of where we spend our money for marketing. We used to think, oh, radio marketing is great, let's dump money there, but actually it's not, right? We're seeing a huge impact from social media. We get so many impressions off of our website on a weekly basis from our social media ads that we're running. So it definitely helps us adjust where we're putting money and then where we're focusing other resources like personnel internally in the office.
Right. Are you still working with an outside marketing company? There was a...
Yes. So we have an outside marketing company that also provides like business coaching services, and they kind of work together with us and with our director of marketing. So all of our ads, probably 80% or 90%, probably 80% of the ads that we're running are being run through our marketing director. She's designing the videos, she's cutting them, she's designing the ads. She's the one who is building our internet presence. But we're doing it under the kind of like the guidance of this external marketing firm.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. What percentage of your practice is injury?
I think at this point, we're probably about 75%. Pre-pandemic, I would have said we were closer to like 90.
Okay.
But with the pandemic emerged a more busier rather domestic practice that has grown significantly. And, we have an attorney who's handling those cases in-house.
Got it. So you have worked with a number of really good injury firms throughout your career, because even though Tiffani looks young, she's she's practiced for a little bit. She's
I'm a little seasoned.
She's experienced. A young attorney coming out, I see a lot of young attorneys come out and go right into their own thing, go right into their own practice, and you see that a lot out on social media also. Is that something you'd recommend, or I'm sure your experience was valuable. Was it invaluable in a way that you say, okay, well, I had to do that prior to starting my own shop, or I could have come right out and started my own shop?
I think that there is a huge disservice to any young lawyer who comes out of law school and is put in a position where they have to start their own practice, and they do it without any type of mentorship and guidance. It's unfortunate for that attorney, and it's unfortunate for every client that he or she will serve in their first 5 years of practice. And I say that because I graduated from law school. And when I graduated, I did a 1-year clerkship at the trial level in the circuit court for Baltimore City. I knew I wanted to try cases. I needed to see how you try cases, right? In law school, you can do moot court, you can do trial team. In undergrad, you can do mock trial. And in theory, they tell you the basics of what trial work is, right? Like you learn about openings, closings, you learn about direct examinations, cross examinations, you even learn the rules of evidence, right? I mean, I came out of law school a complete animal on the rules of ethics. I would beat you down on objections left and right in court. But what we know from our years of practicing, right, is that there's so much more that goes into a case before it ever sees daylight in a courtroom.
Sure.
And if you don't understand the fundamentals of that at the very beginning of a case, you're going to screw it up. I don't care if you win. If you win, you probably left 50% of the case value on the table. And that's, to me, that's a loss, right? And I say that because you have to learn how to practice law, and you have to learn how to prepare for trial. And that's not something you get from law school. Law school doesn't teach you either of those things. And I don't care if you're graduating order of the coif or the bottom of your class. If law school doesn't teach you that, you have to learn that from experience. And the way you learn that is through talking to other lawyers, practicing with other lawyers, watching other lawyers in some capacity or another. Some things you can learn by being in proximity. Osmosis is there a little bit, but you really need that other person to bounce ideas off of. You need that other look at how long we've been practicing. If I am in dead space on a case, I'll call you in a second and say, hey, let me run this by you. We have talked through case theory. We have talked through objections. We have talked through dispositive motions. That collegial relationship is so critical to being able to successfully practice law that you are doing yourself a disservice. Now, I say that, but I also recognize that I graduated from law school in 2008. That is when the economy bottomed out, right? It was when the mortgage industry burst. There were friends that I had who had gotten offers from firms, but the firms rescinded the offers or asked them to go work somewhere doing low bono work for a year before coming to the firm. So there were some people who had no other choice, right? Because you have, if you're a normal kid, you have student loans that you have to pay. You have, if you're older, you have a family that you have to support. You have to make some choices that are difficult, and those opportunities aren't always available for you to go and join a firm. So I certainly understand that. And if someone does walk down that line, what I'll tell you is that there are so many people, even before this idea of master's classes, which I think was birthed through the pandemic, but there are so many people that are hustling trial practice strategy classes or CLEs or online boot camps. Invest in yourself so that you can give your clients the best representation possible.
I think that's very well said. Every situation is unique, but make sure you've got the humility to understand what you don't know and that you can gain from and learn from anybody, I think. And that's a huge point. And just like you said, we're case in point, right? We're both, run successful firms, and we're not claiming to know stuff that we don't know. And we're constantly seeking information. How can we do this better? What can we learn ourselves? So that's a great point. What do you think your biggest challenges have been from a broad sense? Biggest challenges, juggling caseload, biggest challenges, marketing, biggest challenges, management. I mean, people, what do you think on a broad scale?
I would put those into 3 categories, right? The first category is managing cases. So I worked for probably three of the most prominent injury firms in the state of Maryland. All three firms were record breakers for different reasons. I had an opportunity to work at a firm that literally created the cause of action of lead poisoning, right? I mean, I have worked under some of the most brilliant attorneys and been fortunate enough to be the recipient of their mentorship. With that came a lot of name recognition. So when I started my own firm, everyone was like, oh, that's wonderful. Let me start sending you cases, right? And when you start your own firm, the biggest concern you have is, oh my gosh, what if I get no cases? What if nobody calls me? What if I don't make any money? And I remember within like the first 6 months, I was talking to another lawyer who I ended up sharing space with her. She let me rent an office in her suite. And she said to me, you'll never have to worry about cases. The cases will come. What you have to worry about is knowing which ones to take and which ones to decline. And that is so incredibly true. Lawyers get bogged down. We all get bogged down with these cases sometimes that really aren't worth the resources that we need to put in them. And we get bogged down with them because they're not top-notch cases, because they're not A cases or B cases, or even sometimes C cases, they fall to the bottom of the pile. And a 3-year statute of limitations can run quick. And when you get within range of the statute, you have to file, right? You have to dump resources on it. You have to move the case along because you don't want to do a disservice to that client who just wanted your help. And you don't want to get yourself in trouble, right? With, missing a deadline or blowing a
Sure.
statute. So one of the most challenging things that I had to learn was managing my caseload, understanding which cases I could take, which cases I couldn't, realizing when I was at capacity, when I needed to hire someone to come in to help with the work. I mean, listen, litigation is overwhelming, and you should always if you're in litigation, you should teeter between feeling overwhelmed and feeling completely in control. If you feel overwhelmed every single day, you need to make some changes. You need to cut some cases, you need to refer some cases out, or you need to hire someone and you need to bring them in. Outside of caseload management, the other thing is people management, right? When you work at a firm, everyone that you work with has been trained by that firm. So things are a lot more harmonious because you are all working from the same playbook. When you run your own firm, you're hiring people from different teams, and you have to make sure that your playbook, right, is clear, it's consistent, and you have to make sure that they are running plays by your playbook. And that's difficult sometimes, managing people, managing personalities. No two employees are the same. And as a managing partner, I have to deal with employees differently. I have to address them differently because some people receive information differently. They process information differently. And having to juggle all that in a way that you are still keeping them motivated, still keeping them inspired, and still working to make the work environment a place they want to come into every day, but also making sure they're getting their work done. That was a skill that took me some time. Candidly, that took me some time to completely figure out. And I won't even say that I've mastered it, because I think every new employee is a new challenge.
Sure. Yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. Caseload management, people management. I am not good at people management. So there was one other question that I wanted to ask you before I ask you what's next for you, and I didn't want to miss this question. So yeah, I need more mentorship on how to run a podcast, but
I can't help with that one.
So what is next for you? I mean, what do you think? Where's Tiffani Collins in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
So I want to continue to grow. Obviously, I want to have a reputable, small, but a bit larger than where we are right now, litigation firm in Baltimore. I want, when people think about attorneys in Maryland, and they think about litigators in Maryland, that our name is one of the names that's at the top of the list. There's no secret that I am a minority on two fronts. I am a woman, I am an African-American woman, and those things are not missed in any of my advertisements, So that's important to me. When you think about women-owned firms, when you think about minority-owned firms, I want my name to be at the top of the list, and I want to grow, and I want to continue to mentor young lawyers. I think it's important. People always say representation is important, and it is. Representation is very important. I remember as a kid, my brother and I are the first children, we're the first grandchildren on both sides of our family to graduate from college. I was the first one to have what did we call it? A postgraduate degree, essentially. So we have been setting a lot of examples across the board internally in our family. And I want other young girls who look at me, who look like me, to see that there's someone who looks like them that has achieved this and they can achieve it as well. One of the things that we do every year is we sponsor high school students to come into the office. A lot of the local independent schools, you get this, we're both independent school kids. They do the senior work project, where 2 weeks out of your senior year at the end, you have to go and you have to work somewhere to get an experience. And I always make sure that across all of the independent schools that I know headmasters at, or I know counselors at, that they know, like, look, if there's anybody who wants to know about law, who wants to really know about law, who's interested in law school, you can send them to me. We're happy to host them for 2 weeks. So it started with, 4 or 5 kids in May, and pre-pandemic, we had like 6 kids through the summer too. So it's wonderful to see young people so interested in the work that we do, teaching them early how important the work that we do is. I mean, like, we make a lot of jokes, but, Byron, we're really out here trying to make people's lives better.
Yep.
When you get up in the morning, when I get up in the morning, we're thinking about not necessarily cases, but people. What can I do for my clients today? What can I do to make their life better? How do I get them through these dark spots? Because when people come to us, they're usually in the middle of a nightmare, right? They have suffered some type of tragic injury where they can't work. They're worried about being able to take care of their families. They're facing, criminal charges. It's their first contact with the criminal system. And they really need some guidance. They need someone to talk to them about the law, someone to talk to them about life after the case is over. And I think it's important to make sure that people see our profession in its truest light, and not just the horrific portrayals that you see on television.
Yeah. And that actually was my one of my other questions, because you said caseload management and what cases to reject. And this was the question that I was thinking about, because do you have the same problem I have? When I get on the phone with a potential client, I see a case no matter what, not because there's necessarily money in it for me. I see a case usually because there's money in it for me, but also because, oh shit, this person needs help, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they may need help that is not proportionate to the fee that is part of that case. I mean, it happened yesterday. I mean, is that a challenge for you as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the curses that we have, we being you and I, and even, some colleagues that we have in common, is that we're really, really smart. And we really know the things that we know them so well. So what happens is we get those cases, the cases that tug on our heartstrings, the cases where we know that if we just push it just enough, we might be able to make something happen. And it's very difficult to figure out where that line is between, this is not something that our firm can help you with, and, let's roll the dice on this. I mean, like, I have definitely taken cases. I remember my first multi-million-dollar verdict when I was on my own was a case that someone had sent to me because they were like, look, I know this lady. I don't really have the heart to tell her she doesn't have a case. I don't want anything to do. I don't want anything out of it. If you could just talk to her maybe and explain it to her. And so, I'm talking to her, and the wheels are turning, and I'm thinking things through, and you start to think, well, what about this? And what about that? And you do a little bit of research, you look at a little bit of case law, So you have to be, you have to have a certain level of discretion in when you're evaluating cases that are tricky cases versus cases that just don't have the value that you need them to have in order for it to be worth it for you to take it. And it's hard. It's
Yeah.
I don't have a rubric for it. I couldn't even, I don't even know how to tell you to evaluate it. But you know when you know. I mean, we've all had those times where we sat down and we're like, man, I should have never took this case.
Totally.
You
Totally.
know.
And it's worse when you just love the client, right? And it's just like, and sometimes in my mind, I'm like, it is ridiculous to me. This whole tort reform, personal injury lawyers are horrible people and bottom feeders and shit. I'm like, you're nuts. I'm like, I literally sit here and have these conversations with people, empathize on them with a level where I'm like, I'm going to put 25 grand into this case and 50 person hours, and there's basically no chance of recovery, but I gotta do it, right? Like, it's like I have more of a struggle with that than I do. That's part of my struggle. I mean, it's part of why I don't do near as many intakes as I used to, because
You'd be signing everybody up.
absolutely, and then it comes to the attorneys in my office desk and they're like, Byron, what the fuck is this? I mean, come
Yeah.
on, I mean, it's so, your firm all women of color?
We are all women of color, all 11 of us.
I love that.
I don't know how that happened. I think that like men look at our website when we're hiring. I think that guys look at our website and they're like, nah, we're not even gonna apply there. So yeah, it's by chance, but we definitely are. And it definitely makes us stand out. Clients always comment about that. I was on your website and it's just a bunch of beautiful young women. I mean, are there any guys in there? And we're like, why are you asking? But no.
Right. Yeah, it's like, they come in here and fuck it up.
It's wonderful. We have fancy soaps and lotions next to every sink. It smells really good in there. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah. So you have put yourself out as somebody who wants to be an example for people coming up behind you. And I can tell you, as somebody who's watched your career from the outside for a number of years, you are.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you, Byron.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Anything you want to throw out there before we wrap?
I want to say that I think that the work we do is like the best thing ever. It is the most rewarding. It's the most life-changing. It's the most impactful. I would not have chosen another profession if I could have. This has been my calling, I think, since I was 7 years old. I mean, I definitely grew up watching Matlock. I thought I was going to be the Black female version, of Matlock. But it is so rewarding, at the end of the day, to know that the things that you do on a daily basis impact somebody's life in a positive way. So I encourage whoever's listening to go to law school. I had a great time in law school. Law school was like the highlight of my life. I would go back if I could. So if anybody tells you that law school is horrible, don't believe them. Don't believe them. But I think that lawyers are the best. That JD, that ESQ at the end of your name. I mean, we can do everything short of brain surgery. And I don't know, we might be able to talk our way through that too.
And I have a message for anybody listening, and that is, go to Tiffani's website, Tiffani Collins, Google her, check her out, follow her on social, see what she's about, because she is one of the leaders and is going to be one of the true leaders of our profession.
Oh, thank you, Byron. That's so sweet.
Thanks,
That's not going to get you out of buying me drinks tonight, though.
Fair enough. Thanks, everybody.